First and foremost, thank you so much, Ritu, for making the long trek from Gurgaon, all the way to Greater Noida. Just by way of a little bit of a context, the people you see in the room are essentially our, what would it be? The first MBA batch at SNU was in 2015.
2014. This
14.
joined in 14, graduated in 16.
Right, so this is the 8th batch, right? The 8th batch or 9th batch?
Eighth
8th batch of
eighth batch.
MBA students of the School of Management and Entrepreneurship here at SNU. Just by way of a context, Shiv University was created in 2011 was when it was registered as a State Private University Act. And School of Management is the youngest of the 5 schools, and actually the academy is the youngest. We have an academy of continuing education which essentially is mandated to do work with the working professionals industry, exec ed and short programs on leadership, etc. But the School of Management is the youngest from among the traditional schools, which is like we have a school in engineering, school in natural sciences, school in humanities and social sciences and management. So these guys have been here since 27th of June, okay, and pretty much come from all over the country. Brave people, because they are part of a journey which the world doesn't know much about, which is business school in the context of a university, and that too Shiv Nadar University, which is, of course, we all know that we are all very proud that we are an institution of eminence. But as you would know, management education is the most contestable market in the entire, canvas of business education in the world, and especially in India. And I told them that, in India you may actually be surprised by the number of MBA degrees that are available. It's more than 6,000.
Really?
Yeah. So these guys have made a very important decision to entrust their career on us, and so in that context, I think your coming is very important, and what we're going to do today is, as I was just telling you, that spend the next maybe 45 minutes talking about you.
That's a lot.
And then maybe we could have a freewheeling chat, very informally, and then we'll open up the floor to the real stakeholders in this room, which is the people that you see in front. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and what got you. We have figured out that you went to SPJ, and what got you interested in management? Why SPJ? So I leave it to you how to structure it.
Sure. Maybe I first want to start with a thanks also. Thanks a lot for calling me, and thanks for accommodating the change in date. And it becomes extra special for me to be with Sir on Guru Purnima Day. So it makes it very special. And I don't, while I've been a student, you don't know he's a guru to the entire family actually.
Okay.
So my husband was the student of his as well. We were together in SPJN. And then he went on to teach my brother at IIM Calcutta.
Oh, okay.
So my parents also regard him as a guru of the family, and they send their regards. As for me, I grew up in Hyderabad. I finished my MBA now 26 years back, so it was way back, probably when you were not born. Many of you probably were not born then. I was always interested in finance. After 10th, I chose to take maths and commerce. At that time, it was much debated because good students were expected to either pursue engineering or medicine. It was a very traditional. In fact, I debated between joining an art school and even commerce. Then I did my BCom honors. I started my CWA, so I was always on the path of doing CA. MBA happened to me because many of my friends were giving CAT, and I felt I would finish my education without having given a single competitive exam. Because at that time CA didn't need an entrance exam, we just cleared papers. And all the exams were done. SPGN used to follow MAT, which was the last exam in June, July. So I thought I should at least give one competitive exam in my life, just to know where I stand. And I gave that, and it happened. And then there was a dilemma because I was already started on my CA path. And I'm glad of the choices I made, and I went to SPGN, and that definitely changed the path, gave me ambition, gave me vision. Having teachers like Professor Bhattacharya opened my mind to the possibilities, and since then things changed. I did complete my ICWA, and I think it helps to because I started my career with corporate finance. So having a grounding in accounts and finance as a balance came through quite well eventually. So that's how it started.
Terrific. So one of every time I'm part of any alumni meet, whether it's IIM Ahmedabad or IIMT Ghaziabad. By the way,
and incidentally, my daughter's in IIMT Ghaziabad now.
Okay, congratulations.
Quite a few common points.
Terrific. Yeah. So one of the favorite questions I have to ask them is, when you were there, it was a 2-year program.
Yes.
You had your, priorities, which courses to focus on, which non-courses to focus on, which movies to focus on, which classmates to focus on, and so on, right? So if you were to go back to business school today, would you look at that opportunity differently than the way you actually, what you took out of it when you actually went to business school?
Sure. I think, at least in my case, and I think I speak for a lot in my generation, we weren't as focused as they are. We were a bit straitjacketed and we pursued what we had started out for. I think I would do that differently. I think there's a lot of merit in doing courses of other streams and getting a perspective on different courses and possibilities, which I think is a flexibility your generation exercises a lot. And it comes in very handy in life. Other than that, I think those were two most memorable years, and it's amazing. You spend more time with friends in school, long years, graduation is longer, MBA is just about a year and a half. With internships and all, it's just about that much. But the kind of relationships and network you nurture there and build stands for lifetime. So I think that is something that worked well, but I would give more time and attention to that than I did then.
Yeah.
I took it for granted. Now I realize the value of it. So please do that.
Yeah, we've been constantly talking to our young students over here that, your alma mater, of course, MBA is a very short, I'm sure a few years from now, when you look back at your days as an MBA student, it would probably be like a jiffy, right? It just sort of passes. But we keep saying that you may be a student for a couple of years, or you said, as you rightly said, less than 2 years, because last semester you are mostly thinking about which company to work for and placements and so on and so forth. But you're an alumni for a life.
Yes.
Right, and therein lies the import of a solid institutional brand, as we call it, right? So what has SPGN meant for you? In the sense that you talked a little bit about the network and the kind of friends you made. Do you happen to go back there, either as a guest speaker or as a recruiter and so on? How does what does an alum of a respected business school mean for you?
I think alum plays a very key role, and 28 years back, SPGN was a good brand, but not as strong as it is today. And I would think alum have a role to play in that, in terms of how we can associate and give back. And while I don't, quite a few of my classmates and my friends are very closely associated, those especially in Mumbai, and take courses, they're teaching, they're faculty there, they've taken positions. And of course, whatever you do and go out and work, the brand name is something you contribute and build upon. And I think that connect is so strong. So even a fresh grad from SPGN instantly connects with you, though you may have passed on donkey's years back. So I think, but what alumni bring, and I'm sure all of you will have a chance, especially when the institute is growing, students have a big role to play. There's a lot more flexibility, And I think that is something you should also, because the institute, as we explained, is about 8 years old, which means there are many things that you still have a chance to build on. Many faculties you can request for, many lecturers you can invite. There's more flexibility. Once it develops and becomes bigger, those flexibilities go away. And I think those learnings played, for me at least, a big role. For example, I was in the admissions committee and students played a very key role at that time in SPGen, and we took a lion's share of the burden of the work that was involved. That is also where I worked again under Professor Bhattacharya. He was the lead of admissions committee. That experience, I mean, as a fresher, I was a fresher. I had no work ex when I came out of MBA school. I had moved from college to college. I think those kind of unstructured, ambiguous areas which were so open-ended and you had to define things had a defining impact on developing me. And I would expect there would be many such opportunities for all of you also here. Grab all of them. Though you may not see any benefit of it immediately, it might seem like a lot of work on top of things that you're already doing. Curriculum is demanding in MBA, hours are crazy, but just grab every opportunity to take on more that you can.
Terrific. So, Ritu, were you going to classes late?
Sir, I'm already nervous to be in a classroom with sir. No, I was not going to classroom late. I was a good student, but not as meritorious as I should have been. I should have learned my subject even better than I did.
One of the things that we are struggling with the new generation is that we are not part of them. Like we are all these grey-haired oldies who are, of course, by heart and spirit much younger than them. But they don't seem to wake up on time to make things on class. I mean, I don't know whether it is generational or it's specifically those who take admission at SNU. But talk to us a little bit about, my experience. We'll come to the issues of leadership that you've already started hinting on as to taking responsibilities, ownership for, really running your own destiny. But in the, corporate sector or even the professional sector, I've been a career academic, okay? A lot of what builds credibility as a professional, I think I have having been at IIM Ahmedabad many years, was that even among the students, the assumption was that your exams, your algorithms, and your ability to trade in the in the financial markets, as long as you do that well, then you're going to reach the sky. But the import of building credibility around the professional that you are, and some of them are housekeeping things, right? Being in a meeting on time, finishing the meeting on time, and is an act of paying respect to other people's times as well, right? So, could you talk to us a little bit about how is professional life different from your school life and college life, where things, what people tend to sort of ignore simple things, but they get noticed in the workplace?
In the professional world, it is absolutely expected. There's zero tolerance. So if there's absolutely no possibility of having a lackadaisical attitude to being on time or keeping time or being mindful, that is hygiene. If that is missing, then there's a very big gap. Skills are something that can be taught. I can't even express. You can see me fumbling for words because I don't think there's any tolerance for that. Of course, even as culturally Indians people still believe that we are late, we don't deliver on our commitments, etc., which I think is true to some extent because we make it somehow. We somehow make it on time, we somehow deliver on projects, etc. And now, last 5 years, I'm working for a German company. And I can see the world of difference. So while I've been a professional all my 25 years plus now, but 1 minute late needs an hour of explanation where I work. 1 minute late is really late. So there's absolutely no question. And I see that attitude everywhere. All meetings begin on time, end on time, you plan for it, everyone shows up, everyone expected to be mindful and prepared. So I would think there's zero tolerance for this. So yeah, if some of you haven't got that message, please do, because I don't think that's something that anyone has any tolerance for in workplace anymore.
I think that's a very important thing for them to hear it from you, as opposed to hearing from us, academics. Because I have been to several. I've been in global meetings where people come in 5 minutes late and people wait, and then I would simply get up and leave. The meeting is over if you're not there. Okay.
5 minutes is a lot of patience.
5 minutes is a lot of time. Even at IIM Ahmedabad, we used to 5 minutes after the class. That's the tolerance limit. Doors close. You're too early for the next class.
Please do so, sir. Otherwise, you're doing a disfavor to them.
Absolutely. So thanks for reinforcing this, Ritu. Coming back to your college days,
that didn't mean we were not partying. I don't think so. That still meant we could be partying till 2. But if the class is at 9, you have to be there at 9. I mean, that was not an option. And I don't think you even gave us 5 minutes. The door closed even before.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, you came from a commerce background, and today, we heard the kind of responsibility you have, and along with being CEO, you also have a CIO role, which is Chief Investment Officer. Okay.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about what does leadership mean for you, right? Like when you've gone from, of course, functional leadership all the way to organizational leadership. And that's something that I felt that in my experience, especially when people do masters at a relatively young age, which you also did,
yes,
right? With no sort of organizational experience before coming for an MBA, what should they be aware of as to what does leadership really mean? And we'll come to the woman part. Okay, if I may attach to that. Okay, the second part is that being a woman, what does it mean to be a woman in a leadership position? That's the second part of the question. But what does leadership mean in an organizational setting?
Leader to me is a person who can inspire and who can give direction. And after that, once you galvanize the right set of people towards the right mission, and you can carry them with you, I think then the rest of the work gets done. So defining the purpose, the mission is pretty important. There will be course corrections that the leader needs to do, but more than that, it's about people. So you have the right set of people with you, and you empower them in the right way, and they know where they're headed. I think that does it. Woman. I think as a woman, it's been a very interesting journey. When I started about 28 years back, even in B-school interviews, we were asked things like, are you looking at getting married? What are your plans about having kids? There was a lot of concern in the minds of the employer at that time if we would sustain the careers or we would fall off, which is still a problem. Many times women can't sustain careers. But now, there's no better time for being a woman than today. Diversity is much more accepted. You'll find organizations trying to come up with women-friendly. No one would ask you those questions. It's expected that, yes, you're a woman and you will have a family, and that's not necessary that you will not pursue a career after that. So I think that mindset, at least in terms of policies and formal approach, has changed. Some of it might still linger in minds of people, but I think there's no better time to be a woman because everyone wants to show their gender diversity statistics. Everyone wants to be seen as a fair employer, an equal opportunities employer. And I think I'm blessed that I'm seeing this time as well. It is a good time to be a woman leader.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you will be happy to know that in our class, as you can see, it's a solid balance.
60%.
About 60% are women students, which I think we are very proud of. Of course, the men being in minority, they also should know, what scarcity opens up opportunities. Okay, so jokes apart. Not entirely meant as a joke, by the way. I told you my PhD was in economics, the science of scarcity, correct? So, what's with women in financial institutions? When you look around women in leadership positions across organizations, they tend to be, almost monopolizing the financial institutions. Any thoughts on that? What's their comparative advantage there, if there is any?
I don't know if there's I don't believe gender gives any competitive advantage, but I think women started off in banking and financial services earlier than they did in other fields. Even when I was doing commerce and we would discuss career and my family was pretty open, my parents thought banking and finance would be a good field as a woman. It's an office job, it is non-traveling, so it was seen as a comfortable career for a woman to lead. So I think there are many women in India. We've had many women CEOs who obviously started off earlier than me also. So I think it was a sector women entered, and I'm sure we'll see the same thing in different sectors. IT is another, I think, where we now see a lot of women leaders, probably. I think beyond that, the other logic that many offer in jest is that women have always been better money managers. They've been traditionally playing that role at home, but that's more in jest. I don't think there's more to that.
No, I think that's a deep insight. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I want to go back to your college days, okay? I have always held a thesis that business schools ought to be near where business happens, right? And you went to SPJ, which is smack in the middle of the financial capital.
Yes.
And my hypothesis is that SPJ would never be SPJ if it was not in Mumbai, right? And similarly, I keep saying that we sitting here in Delhi NCR at the hub of a lot of innovation, entrepreneurial activity, and of course national capital naturally gives us an advantage. Would you agree with that? And if yes, then could you talk to us about how during your student days you would engage with the professional world and the industry?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. We depended very heavily on visiting faculty at SPJN at that time. And that was a boon in many ways because that meant we got a very wide range of professionals who came and shared experience. Not to say that academicians don't add value, they do, because they are the ones who bring the depth of the subject forward. And then with the balance of visiting faculty who can then balance it out with how it actually applies in the real world, I think brings the right balance. So I completely agree with you, and many of those interactions with visiting faculty, etc., open doors for internships, projects, assignments, supporting them, visiting their workplaces, things like that, which were extremely valuable. And I would really encourage all of you, I mean, that's digressing from your question, but what has worked for me and I've seen working for others is things they did which were not required to be done. So all of us will obviously do the internship that the college curriculum demands of us or the project that that course demands of us. But every little extra that we can do, grab, use our time with adds a lot of value, which is what I said I would do differently. I would want to do more of marketing, I would want to do more of operations because, I mean, you start off as a functional person, you grow into being a business manager. And then there's very little time to go back and strengthen your fundamentals. I mean, you do keep going back. I keep going back to colleges for different kinds of courses, strategy, this, that, workshop. But that kind of a grounding that you get in a MBA school classroom, you don't get again. No one goes back to the basics. They just presume you know. And that's why you're there. So I would really think taking as many as you can. Any visiting faculty has any work, you're overloaded still, but if you take it, please deliver on it. Because everyone goes that extra mile to give a project to a student and takes a bit of personal risk when they do so. So that is important that one delivers for the institute and for yourself. But grab as much as you can. That really helps in life.
I just wanted to share with you some of the, experimentation, not experimentation, these are proven curriculum. I mean, our thinking is that if you look at, we talked about 6,000 business schools that you can choose from, not all of them, but you have a wide range of choices. If you look at the curriculum in most business schools, they are about to an 80% tolerance, they are pretty much one and the same, right? So they will have, principles of finance, principles of marketing, etc., right? So there's not too much to choose between, the syllabus, quote unquote, to use an old terminology, between business school A, B, and W, okay? And we believe that the real game is in not what we learn or what we teach, but how we teach it. Okay, so you already talked about internships and so on. So we have introduced this business challenge practicum, which is essentially a consulting project that they have to do on live industry problems. And we have already prototyped that model with businesses. I mean, from the local business like medium MSMEs, where they've given a really meaty strategy like market entry projects for US, Singapore, etc. For a third-party manufacturer for one of the some of the top-end brands, Italian brands, and so on. He has aspiration to take the brand global. Okay, so our students have done those projects. And the same projects have been given to the McKinseys of the world too. And we've got terrific feedback from them about the quality of work done by the students, etc., right? But as you rightly said, that these are often unstructured problems, which they will have to take a stab at, and how well they do and how well they deliver. Of course, a lot is riding on those. I mean, our own credibility of not just us, because they represent the university, but also the companies that are giving us the projects, because they're also taking risks, right? But at the same time, if you, Ritu, if you consider the kind of access to information you had when you went to...
Oh, it was very different.
Compared to what they have.
Yeah. We would sit in libraries to do sector reports and read old newspapers. It was very different.
Yeah. So, so we believe that management education is only partial in the classroom. The rest of it is there. What about in the same line? Were you active in all the festivals and all the other student events? Did you have an annual festival that you would participate in?
Sure. No, the more you do, the better. But what you said earlier triggered a couple of thoughts, if I may share. I think two learnings of SPGen and the fact that it was so unstructured at that time, I think, in hindsight, really helped me in life. Our dean always said the onus is on you. And I think that over 2 years of grilling, Professor Shrikant would also say that, Uncle Shrikant. And for everything, when we complained, or we said we don't have this, or we don't have that, or this faculty is not struck, and he would say the onus is on you. And I think that really helps till date, because the onus is always on you. The onus of your career will always be on you. The best of organizations you join, the onus is always on you. I think that helps, and that has stayed and really added value. Second is ambiguity. Develop comfort with ambiguity. The world is ambiguous. You will not have structured solutions. You should not have. If you have, then you don't get to contribute. So ambiguity is great. Pick up projects like that, which you don't know where they'll take you, and then invest all of yourself in finding those solutions. Those are the kind of learnings that really change you. That is what really impacts. So please keep the onus on yourself, and please embrace change. Please embrace ambiguity. Definitely do something you don't know how to do. When you think this is out of my comfort zone, 100% take it up. Comfort zone you already know, why do it? Do everything which is beyond your comfort zone. So when you were speaking, these thoughts just triggered. And I lost what you asked me. Sorry.
That's okay. No, what I asked you was that would you be participating? I mean, they have a lot of events and college fests and so on. Yes. These folks also have one called Moksh that they do sometime in November, I believe, or November. and it's a great opportunity for them to manage budgets, really think big.
Yes.
And as you said, I think it is very important to really aim at the highest.
Absolutely.
And I keep saying, these are all Bibekisms, okay? That if you set the bar too low, even a goat can cross it. So why wouldn't you set the bar hard? And really, and I've been sort of talking to some of their predecessors about really making Moksha into a terrific event, and hope to see you there as well. Okay, now coming to the flavor of the season now. We'll come to ESG in a bit, but entrepreneurship, right? I remember when I used to teach, mid-90s in Ahmedabad, they used to have these concepts of dream companies to work for, and it'll be, typically Procter and Gamble and Unilever and, some maybe, Deutsche Bank and so on. But not anymore. The dream company is one's own. So you never thought of, of starting your own company and going the entrepreneurial route?
Actually, SPJN emphasized a lot on entrepreneurs. Professor Shrikant was only trying to make entrepreneurs of us. But I have actually 2 startups. So three actually. So MetLife Insurance has just come into India in 2001 is when India opened insurance. So I'm a founding member of MetLife. I'm a founding member of Canada HSBC. So while it was not my capital, but it was very much a startup environment and building an institution that outlasts you. And I can tell you, there's nothing more heady. There's nothing which gives you a bigger high than that.
Yeah.
So it is quite a good opportunity if any of you can work for yourself or work for a group that is setting out with big dreams and small pockets.
Yeah, that's, we are, our vision is also aligned, like Dr. Shrikant's, in the sense that, being we constantly ask us the question that how are we different from the 6,000 other MBA schools or a business school, and especially, having Shiv's legacy.
Yes.
In the DNA, we are focused on what we call entrepreneurial leadership, and we keep talking to our students saying that entrepreneurial leadership, it's more like a trait, it's more like a attitude, as opposed to whether you start your own company. Absolutely. Or somebody else's.
Yes.
And
and events like Moksha are a great way to explore and develop it.
Absolutely.
And chasing excellence is a way of life, guys. So I'm sure you want whatever you do to be par excellence. I'm sure Moksha is also that way.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to, I want to provoke them through you, is I know you're a finance person. We all know that, but when people start out in their post-MBA career, a lot of the jobs are essentially sales. Okay, our understanding from from prolonged conversations we have with some of the students is that people look down upon sales.
Really?
In the sense that they think that I don't want to sell. What I want is
it's a tough job.
Nice cabin, air conditioned, and that's where I'm going to build my career. So would you want to talk to them a little bit about what sales mean in business?
It's a bread and butter. We exist to service customers, right? Whichever industry that might be.
Yeah.
And sales is what connects us to the customer, it helps us hear the voice of the customer. So we exist for that. There's no need for any of us otherwise if we are not connected. And personally for me, I had joined Marico after SPJN, and Marico had a very intensive management training program wherein I was also put through sales. I enjoyed it tremendously. And that meant even in those days, which were very conservative, to sit in the tempo with the driver and go shop to shop on the beats that you have. It meant spending time in the factory. But I would love to do that again if I could in my life. It gets more and more difficult as you grow because there is no replacement to that. In fact, if one could do it when one is still, if you get sales internships, that's the best internship you can get. The earlier you do it in your life, the more you will be enriched as a professional. So yeah, there's no replacement to it. The more you do it, the earlier you do sales, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, we have the legendary stories of, Hindustan Lever's management trainee program in which they have to go to these boonies, as we call it, like and essentially, sleep in shacks, spend 3 months selling surf.
So my little niece and nephew were taught.
Yeah.
So if anyone asks, "Bua kya karti hai?" I have 3 elder brothers and they're little kids. So they would go around telling everyone, "Bua tel bechti hai. वो ऑटो में घूम के तेल बेचती है." So that was how they. But that was great कि तेल बेच दिया उस समय. बहुत कुछ सीखा.
Yeah, yeah. You talked about coming out of the comfort zone, and you said that do things that I'm not good at, good unless and until first and foremost, unless and until you do it, you never know if you're not what you're good at and you're not, right? So one of the things about especially I'm assuming most of the students come from fairly urban background, and the fact that all of India is not urban. All of India does not get air conditioning. All of fancy leaders are not spending all their time in air-conditioned chambers. Okay, it is something a bit of a hard sell for the institutions as well. So we of course not in MBA program, but just to share with you, we have an undergraduate program in which we have something called a social sector internship, in which groups of students will have to go to mostly rural areas and live in conditions where they're not used to. And initially, there's a lot of pushback that this is I'm not used to doing this. Right? How important is getting to know the real India?
It's not just real India because all these give you unique business learning opportunities also. So it's not about being social or about being pious or anything. There's personal benefit that one derives. So SPJN also had this social internship, which was in fact in summer we used to do that.
Right.
An internship we did after our placement with the company we got placed. So our main internship was social. And it's one of my biggest regrets is that I did it at home in Hyderabad where my parents were with the Khadi village industry. So I would go there, they would do the weaving, I would see, I would make notes, give them some suggestions. But some of my colleagues like my husband went to Bhuj, they did with Excel Industries, they actually lived in Bhuj, they worked there. The kind of experience that they carry till today is enviable. So for me that was a wasted opportunity of 3 months. I was very comfortable, I was at home, I could be chauffeured to my work, etc. So, like you said, I made that choice that I can spend time with family, I can be at home and still meet the criteria of the college. But it was a wasted opportunity. I should have also gone and done something at the grassroots, away from there. I would have benefited a lot. Now I can't do it. Now even if I do it, I don't benefit as much. It's only at that time you can do these things.
Yeah. That's a very important point you made. That only at that time, I met them for the first time when they said that for a lot of them, the MBA would be the last degree, like academic degree they will take, except for those who will be crazy enough like us to go and do a PhD and things like that. What's the import of all of that? In the sense that this is probably the last 2 years they will have a chance to completely stretch the canvas, right? And in a relatively safe way. At the worst, they will fail.
Stakes are so low.
Exactly.
It's good to fail.
Good to fail. This is perhaps the right time to fail, because once you get out into the professional world, you simply do not get the scope to test out your hypothesis and see how much you can stretch yourself. So what I'm hearing you say is that this 2 years, treat it as an elastic with unending elasticity that, stretch as much, but obviously still come on time. If you stretch your evenings too long. So terrific. We've been talking a lot. I've hogged all the questions. So what I would like to do is open up the floor and maybe invite some questions from the audience, including our esteemed faculty in the first row.
May I share one or two perspectives?
Absolutely, please.
Largely triggered by what you said, and probably it might seem like we seem to be pre-aligned and we're probably in the same age group and think alike, but truly, I think I represent what a corporate will require, and so I think what your professors say definitely makes sense. These are hygienes. And a couple of thoughts that it triggers is, when I'm hiring, and I just had an interview before I came here, I was looking at hiring someone, and the candidate asked me, and senior candidate, obviously not an entry-level person, that what are you looking for? Well, what are your expectations of the role? And really it's not skilled, because that is taken and given, and if it is not there, it can be covered. It is largely that people today hire, or always were hiring, is for your attitude. It's for how and not the what is expected of you, and how has multiple attributes on it. How is about your value system, how you approach and how do you deliver. How is about your attitude towards customers. I mean, a problem can have multiple solutions if you look at it from shareholders' point of view, customers' point of view, employee point of view. So how you approach it. How is about ethics and values. So I think the how is extremely important, and how cannot be taught. How only your own experiences in life will help you, and how is what you really, that is the differentiator, because most of you will come out of the college with similar knowledge base. So the what is pretty much similar, and the how develops with the number of experiences you can gather along the way. So the more the experiences, the more diverse the experiences, the richer is the how. The other thing I think we all look for is for attitude. What is the attitude you have? I think there's a huge appreciation for people who are solution oriented and are positive, and are not baffled by the problem on hand, because the world does throw problems that you're not expecting your way. Every business is constantly changing. So I think that attitude of taking on challenges and to be able to smile and think through answers is something really helps. And there's no substitute to curiosity. So please be curious about things, ask, and clearly, even when we're doing leadership development programs, or we're looking at building leadership pipelines globally in India, the focus is on EQ and not IQ. It's assumed that you have the IQ because you've crossed thresholds to reach there. But not all leaders have EQ. And these are things that one needs to be conscious as you start off on that journey, that EQ and how and the attitude actually will differentiate you as you move through your career. When we do talent discussions, most of it is not about does this guy know or this girl know about this and this. It's about how prepared are they for the next level of challenges. So please, but hygiene is of course discipline and sincerity.
Can I add one more to what you've been saying, which is like so true? I would like to add one more, and that is self-concept and self-respect, right? That I am second to no one, okay? This has been enormous, I lived about 10 years of my life in the US, studied there, taught there, I've taught all over the world, but a bulk of my career has been spent in India, right? With very, very bright people, okay? One of the things that my learning from working in India is that we often are swayed by brands.
Yes.
We talked about SPJ and all of these, when we were, I think we are similar as we said, when we were growing up and we referred to that, okay, आप engineering नहीं करना है, आप medicine नहीं करना है, तो फिर, God help you. That used to be the situation, right? But today the world is very different.
True.
And in the sense that, we as a nation, I remember even when I went to the US as my initial part of being a graduate student, there was a self-concept deficit that, really, am I good enough to be as good as these Americans? Okay? It took us about a semester to figure out that we were. Okay? When we figured out that in the class, in most of the academics, that all the toppers were from every country outside of America. That was different, especially the Indian and the Chinese. Coming back to what I'm trying to say, is that we often get swayed by brands and we actually undermine our own esteem in our own eyes. I was talking to my vice chancellor, who's currently in the US, and she was just sharing with me a fact which was striking actually, that she was at MIT and she met with the president of MIT, and they have a program for women engineers. Okay, they try to go scout for bright women around the world who will, and they bring them into an engineering program. And these women have gone and led, even technology companies and so on. They're doing great. Okay. Now the question is, where all are these women engineers coming from? Okay, and you'll be surprised. I mean, what she said, and I was totally astounded that they were not coming from the IITs. Okay. First and foremost, more than half of them are from India.
Wow.
And almost none of them are from those brands that we all know of in engineering, which are the top brands. She's talking about, a lot of unknown places, small engineering schools from relatively, semi-urban regions from the south, from the east, etc. Is where the women have come and they have excelled, and they are occupying, whether it's from mining all the way to deep, data science companies. They are in leadership position. So I personally believe this issue of self-concept, a lot of people come in with this notion that, oh, I didn't make it to an SP Jain, or I didn't make it to an IIM or an IIT Ghaziabad. Well, I am like, therefore, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay? So I wanted to share with you data that what the world is seeing as to what kind of people are excelling and changing the way business is getting done have very little correlation with, of course, you have out-competed people when you get into a top-rated school. All that it says is that you've done great on CAT and probably, you're obviously high IQ, right? But what Ritu you're talking about is that IQ alone will only take you so much.
Yes.
And it is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for where how much you can fly in the sky, which is open.
Completely agree with you. In fact, this comparisons that we all do is pretty much a frog in the well kind of a thing, because this is our well, and we see some frogs jumping higher and some frogs having an advantage over us. And but the moment you get out of that paradigm, for example, now that I'm in a global company and my peers are all global, it just doesn't matter. I mean, who knows what SPJN is? They have no clue what SPJN is or what IIM would have been, or even IIT.
Yeah.
I mean, my German colleagues or my American colleagues don't necessarily know or peg me that way. So then they can only peg me to what I bring to the table and how I contribute and how I work with them. And so, I mean, yeah, as long as we are in this well, of course, we tend to see that. But really, I agree with you. And in fact, being humble and having more hunger is a big distinctive advantage that one has, that when one is not saddled with those brand names.
Yeah. Well, one of my students, Rashmi Bansal, wrote a very famous book called Be Hungry, Be Stupid. I don't know how many of you read it. If you haven't, you should probably buy it and read it. So I think it's time for us to get some questions from that side.
Hi ma'am, I'm Shiv here. I actually from background from finance. I have opted a finance. I'm actually from a background of engineering. I just want to ask you is what is your real motivation for opting in finance, and if you had an option for PhD, are you opting or not?
PhD is an unfulfilled dream. My so, but I believe I probably will still pursue it at some point in time. So I definitely value it. Haven't done it so far. And finance, I think I developed an interest pretty early, like I said, after 10th. In 10th itself, like you all have, I was fortunate to be having career discussions with my family and things, and it kind of attracted me, and then it sustained. Obviously, at that age, I can't say it was very informed, it was probably intuitive, and it was also probably what was getting reinforced. But then when I started studying it, I resonated, and I can't see myself doing anything else now.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is
You
Amisha.
can call me Ritu.
Okay, good evening, Ritu. My name is Amisha, and I have a question. What is the biggest advantage that we have, in 2022 that previous students didn't have in other base schools? What is that one advantage that we have, and how can we make most of it?
I think opportunities, and the world is at your fingertips, which we did not have. For every little research, the kind of effort required was quite enormous. Like I was saying, I mean, we did one project on sector analysis, which meant we would go to libraries in Mumbai. There was an ICSA library, sit there, make notes, come back. While now I can do that same research much easier with more data, more granularity, because I have computing skills, etc. So I think the quality and the depth with which you can work and the speed is very different. I think the second advantage is the kind of projects you can do. It was very traditional. We could not do online things, but now I know there are websites that even offer you internships, projects, etc. So you can do it at your own aptitude, pace, time. You can do multiple. So I think it's now a world of opportunities which is available. Coursera's of the world give you opportunity to do different courses. None of that was an option for us, which I think is a big world of difference. Any concept that's mentioned in the class, if it catches your fancy, you can go and read up and get more and even enroll for a course, even if your college is not offering it. So utilize those opportunities. The more variety of things you know, the better.
Hello, Ritu.
Hi.
My name is Muskan Tansal.
I understand.
So my question is, as we are observing these days regarding India, we see that labor force participation rate of women is decreasing year by year.
Is it?
Yes, it is. It is decreasing year by year. Last year it was 27, and this year it has gone to 23 or 22 something. So I want to ask that maternity leave, is that a bone of contention while recruiting women to higher post or something like that? That while recruiting women, there will be always a bone of contention that she might take a leave or she might omit a year or a half of the year after she get married or something. Is that?
I think less and less so, and I'm disappointed to hear that the workforce participation has gone down. But that workforce participation is a very wide canvas, right? But I think for B schools, definitely the ratio is much better than it used to be. We used to be 10% women in a class of men, and that is how it was throughout our careers, being a minority in a group of men. My senior, Nana Kidwai, obviously she's at least 10-15 years senior to us. When she came into workforce, she would say there was not even a woman's loo in HSBC kind of a setup also. So even organizations which were otherwise multinational didn't have these kind of basic facilities. So I think from there we've made a big journey. You have a cohort. Obviously there'll be more women from this institute who will go and contribute to the world of business. So I would not dampen my spirit by looking at overall workforce. But I think in terms of business and in terms of MBA, you will have equal opportunities. And if you don't, please raise your voice. There's lots, everyone wants that voice to be heard. No organization, big, small, medium, wants to be seen as an organization which doesn't offer equal opportunity.
Good evening, Ritu. My name is Siddharth. I want to ask that you have a long background in finance. So what are the key thoughts about you so that you can deliver to the students so that the students can excel in finance?
Attend classes.
Apart from attending classes, what the extracurricular activities?
Really, these are really because finance is technical and no one comes back and teaches you those technical concepts. I mean, barely Myers is what Sir used to teach. I still keep it like Bible, but I wish I had done more. I mean, I always feel I should have done even more in depth than what I did. So for finance, definitely attending classes, listening to professors, doing practice pays a lot. But beyond that, I think one needs to be open-minded. I myself made career choices which took me all over the place. So I thought I was not good in investments. Disclosure. I was not a topper of this class. And I always believed I was not good enough in investments. And I chose corporate finance because I already was doing ICW as I told you, and I thought with an accounting and this, it was a good career. And I did progress well there. So I was with Gillette, I was with Coca-Cola, I was with Marico, so it was all corporate finance. And then investments it had to be. So I moved to Treasury, and from there I went MetLife. Insurance was just opening up, they were taking talent. At that time also I did not know what investments would be and where it would lead me because it looked like a fixed income investment kind of plain vanilla thing. And very soon I had to do equity and derivatives and private equity, and so you just go learning along the way, and so you open to new things. I did not know many of those things. So even finance is a very wide world. As long as you capture all the topics that are happening, it will serve you well through your career.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Jesus Deva, and first of all, we're glad to have you here at SMU.
Thank you.
And my question to you is like, obviously, you've had lots of ups and downs in your career. So, was there any particular event or experience that made you think like you've made it, or that box is still to be checked in your bucket list?
To be checked. To be checked. I have many years. While I have many years behind me, I have as many in front of me.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my name is Kishore Kumar Saha.
Hi.
Ma'am, actually, I want to ask something about the 2008 financial crisis. Ma'am, like we all know that crisis.
How old were you?
Ma'am, I'm 24 and a half.
Okay.
Uh,
So in 2008, you were really small.
I was really small.
Okay.
So, ma'am, actually, we all know like it has a spillover to the entire world. Ma'am, before coming to this session, I went through your LinkedIn ID. Like I came to know from 2004 to 2008, you were a deputy director in MetLife Life Insurance. Actually, that's the time when the bubble was being created, housing bubble. And in 2008, you were a director at HSBC, this life insurance, HSBC Canada. And that time was when the bubble burst actually. So, ma'am, I want to know what are the turmoils that Indian economy and the corporate has faced, particularly the finance world, and like what are the strategies that you and the corporate as a whole has applied during that time to mitigate that risks, and most importantly, what are the lessons and learnings for us, ma'am?
That's a very wide question, and obviously each one did different things. But what stands out for me personally as a learning at that time is more personal. It's not to do with a financial strategy. So, Canada HSBC was a founding team. We were to start and launch a business, and it seemed just the wrong time to do so because we were got into a financial crisis, and one was nervous about it. And I think what helped was what my boss in MetLife would often tell me, because at that time we were launching equity funds, etc. I had never done an equity fund before that, and markets looked very highly priced. And at both times, it didn't seem to be the right time to do the things. And I think a very wise guidance I got was, you cannot choose the time, you can only choose how you do it. So hence, given the circumstances, please do it in the most astute manner that you think you can do it. And hence, believing markets are expensive, you make a portfolio which is not necessarily trying to outperform, you build in sufficient caution, you let your own wisdom and not greed guide you. And I think that fared well because then you fall but don't fall as much, you protect the downsides, etc. And same when we had to jump off the cliff and Canada HSBC when the market was bad, I think that wisdom held to say you still do what you have to do it in the best possible manner, and then markets after that rose to heights that meant a lot of wealth was created for our investors. So markets will go up and down as long as you stick with what is the right thing to do and the right way to do, diversify risks. Diversification is always what works in financial markets. It's okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
This is Riya Rathi.
Hi.
And my question is that as you have worked with several organizations, so you might have dealt with some cultural differences. So my question is that how have you dealt with all of those? Like in several organizations, you might have, dealt with that. So how did you deal with the same?
Adaptability definitely helps, and yes, you need to know in how warm or water you are, is the water cold, and what it takes to be there. But beyond that, I think it's personal integrity. But definitely, one needs to be. When you go out in the world of business, we are not. We are expected to be smart enough to be able to gauge our environment and to adapt to it. That is true for our customers, that's for changing competitor environment, that's true for organization cultures, and cultures also change with leaders. So within the same organization, when there's a change at the helm, different cultures are consciously or unconsciously, there's a reset in culture. So that is something one needs to be very flexible and open to, and if it is a culture that you're not comfortable with, please move on. So at no point should you be compromising what you're not comfortable with, or integrity, or that is something one should not do. But beyond that, obviously, I mean, when I was moving to Alliaz, I was really warned by many well-wishers saying, "Are you sure you want to join this group of middle-aged German men?" Because I was the only Asian woman on the board at that time, and I was a bit nervous. But in hindsight, it was an extremely good decision because I'm learning a lot from them. But it's a different culture. Yes.
Thank you.
Hi ma'am, I'm Alekhya and I'm also from Hyderabad, by the way.
Nice.
And so my question is, before coming here, I am really fascinated by share markets and investments. I have a portfolio myself. So before coming here, I was really inclined towards taking finance as my electives and all. But after coming here, people here are scaring me that it involves a lot of math and statistics and all. So how much of math and graphs and all? I mean, I know stock markets is about analyzing and the graphs and all, but how much of math is there? I mean, I'm a person who did not have math since grade 11. Now all of a sudden, if it's a career, I mean, not everyone will be good at what they're fascinated in. Like I am fascinated about a career in investments, but it's not that I'll be good at it. So I just wanted to confirm it.
That's a very, very good question.
The question I was meaning to ask you as well, but it's good.
But I'm sure this is also a dilemma many will face, and it's not that you're not. Like I said, I didn't think I was good in investments, opposite of what you are. But now I make a career in that. So we do make things. Definitely, maths and stats plays a role, but it is not the only thing. It is important, and I think 10th maths suffices. It is not that we are building rockets. But having statistics based to be able to see historical data, to be able to analyze, go deeper into financial statements. So basic maths, aptitude and acumen is definitely needed. But that's needed in marketing and sales and ops and everywhere, right? And that's why maths is a part of selection process also in most B schools, etc. And maths is usually taught also business maths. So maths is definitely a part, but it is not that you need an IIT kind of a maths. You need to have a feel for numbers, you need to be comfortable with numbers, you need to be able to understand numbers and the story behind numbers, because numbers only tell you a story which help you in decision making. And investment is, the jury is still out, it's a science and an art, or a quant or not a quant. So, there's a blend of it, and you'll develop your own style if you continue to progress and build a career in investments. So I don't think maths, unless you feel you're really poor with numbers, should be a deterrent. The fact that you have an aptitude for it should more than make up for that. But definitely, you'll have to learn some tools, some statistics, some of it, which I think should be manageable, is what I think. What do you think?
No, completely. In the sense that, I don't, as you mentioned, that it's not just finance, but pretty much all of management today. As I had a session with them a couple of days ago, basically tracing how management as a discipline has evolved, and it has become more quantified in every function, even in HR.
Yes.
Right today, whether it is HR analytics or how big or small a team you need, how many to hire, how many to fire, who's likely to, attrition rates, etc. So everything has become quantified, and we use that term. If you remember, what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So even those that is not quantifiable, there are efforts to quantify them. Now, quantification is not necessarily hard math. Okay, it is a way of thinking. It is more like a language, right? And if you balk from that if you then you cannot be enjoying this journey. So math to me is a language of evidencing. And she mentioned that nobody in the real life, very few positions, unless you're in a super technical position where you're writing algorithms and doing Taylor expansions and doing tensor calculus and all. I don't think any of the jobs were required to do those. But whether you're in finance or anywhere, data is like that's the fuel that runs your engine.
Yeah,
and you have to be able to you have to evidence. If you want to influence somebody, even in communication, you have to give evidence, and evidence is often in quantified form. So don't get worried about all the formula and the theorems and the proofs of those, but do try to appreciate that not math, but quantification and data and evidencing and correlations, associations. These are a lot of what stats, your basic stats build, right? How do you use that to be, even in sales, compelling seller? Today, if one of the fascinating, leading up from your question about 2008, right, crash. If you look at financial sector participation of retail investors in India, it has gone through the roof. I remember about less than 5% of Indian wealth was invested, private wealth, retail wealth was invested in equities. Okay, today, even in the face of FIIs withdrawing, mutual fund industry is, look, as a culture, we have evolved to manage with risk. How do you look at risk and return? So, if so many people have solved it, I'm sure all of you can. You're here in this room. If I may take up this opportunity to ask you a question, very specific. Where do you think crypto is taking us? In the sense that this tussle between fiat and crypto, where are we headed?
Sure. Sir, I'll just complete also that answer.
Please.
It triggered another thought, and I'll come to crypto. Financial statement analysis is another course that I think, irrespective of which stream you're in, as business leaders, and most of the courses of first year are thought through, and they're there for a reason that you need them irrespective of where you specialize. Financial statement is one such course, and I bring it forward because we find we were grooming some women for board positions, and we found that was a skill that is a key gap. Especially when people don't have an MBA background, people come to board from different backgrounds. And I also find, since my daughter's in college, it's seen as a difficult subject, and people who are not looking at doing finance might not take it seriously, but you cannot be a business leader unless you understand a balance sheet. That is a nervous system. And so understanding cash flows, understanding the impact it has on P&L, the different aspects of P&L, balance sheet, it is extremely important. And again, after 10, 12, 15 years, when you're in that position, you be shy and no one will teach you how to do it. So, these are almost all first year courses are super important, but financial statement stands out because many of us are shy of finance, it seems. And so, coming to crypto, most institutional investors like us bogus it, but it is definitely an investment opportunity that's attracting a lot of finance. It's attracting a lot of interest, a lot of wealth is getting created there and hence cannot be ignored. And I think the blockchain as a concept will come closer and closer to the fiat currency and currency as we know it. As it stands today, it seems like a bubble, a myth, not sustainable, but it is also not something to be ignored. And I think that is the realization most regulators and financial institutions and others are having. And I think in the next 5 years, on the outside, we will see a convergence somewhere where it will come closer to currencies and markets and will get a little more structured, regulated, oversight, which will make it possible for institutions also to invest. And then the game changes, the moment institutions come into it.
But ma'am, why the government is so opposed to this crypto world, ma'am?
Why do you think?
What I think is it's decentralized, so the government is a bit
Nervous.
on that.
All governments are.
Is it really a problem, ma'am?
There's no underlying. So when you buy another asset class, there's always an underlying. So you're either buying a loan, you're buying a share of capital of a business, or you're buying an asset, or you're buying a commodity. There's some underlying, and there is some redressal mechanism that takes you back to it. It's redressed by the country, it's redressed by issuing authority, regulated. In case of crypto, it is a blockchain mechanism which the whole world is now logging on to. It has no basis. What is it that you buy when you buy a cryptocurrency?
A promise.
A promise. A promise which you don't know will get fulfilled on what terms. Is it really a promise? So while it is a force to reckon with, I would not dismiss it. But at the same time, it is not, and hence that's why institutions are shy of it. I mean, we are not shy of commodities, we are not shy of distressed credit, because there's still something behind it. But when it comes to crypto, everyone is shy of it, and it's not India shy of it. Globally, no one is comfortable with it. Doesn't mean you should not get comfortable with it. You should. You should be familiar with it.
And being a portfolio manager of 30 billion euros, and would you suggest 1 to 2% of portfolio in crypto?
No. No, I would not. Because I can, crypto, insurance is a business that is a promise. It's only a promise that we sell, that when you're not there or in your moment of need, we will be there to fulfill that need for you. So it could be an accident insurance, it could be a life insurance, it could be a car insurance. It's only a promise that in your moment of need we are there. So I would only go with asset classes that also give me that assurance that in my moment of need it will be there.
And there's a regulatory mechanism to make sure that you are there.
Yes.
There is a redressal mechanism.
Absolutely.
So
I would not put any penny in crypto at this point in time. Like I said, in 5 years, I do see blockchain, I wouldn't call it crypto, blockchain coming into markets in different shapes and forms. And then once it's regulated and there's an underlying, yes.
Okay. One last question and go for dinner.
Thank you for all the questions and participation. Makes it worth it.
Good evening, Ritu. My name is Arpan, and I wanted to ask you, so before coming here, I was really excited about joining the corporate world, but from what I've heard, it's very harsh and unrelenting, and it scares me now that I have to, after 2 years, I have to join the corporate sector. And since you've been in there for so long, can you tell me if there are any disadvantages to it, if there are any?
No, it's very rewarding and happy place also. I can rightly say it's harsh and unrelenting. It is a world that you go in as a serious with all seriousness. No one is going to hold you with kid gloves. But beyond that, it is a very fulfilling place. That is where you find your own purpose, you find your own achievements, you make your contributions. There's no joy like that.
Right. Just one
Sure,
question. To make contributions, you have to actually get to a place of position of power. Right?
No. I mean, contributions happen at every level, and it need not even be in corporate. I mean, by that standards, mothers don't make contributions, right? No, you don't need power or position to make contributions. You need to have conviction, like your sir was saying, that you can make a difference. And that everyone across, even in a corporate, across hierarchies, people make. And in fact, more the junior you are, more you can contribute. Because the more you rise up the corporate hierarchy, the more you're tied up with a lot of frameworks, rules, governance, this,
Meetings.
Meetings. No. I don't know why you're getting worried. It is a world you love to discover, and you will love it.
Thank you.
If I may attempt an answer, see, the good news or the bad news is that every other world is equally unrelenting. Okay, so in economics there is this concept of what is your outside option. Outside options will be no different.
We all have to grow up someday.
Teaching? Well, we'll have a separate conversation later. You think the teaching world is very relenting?
Less than corporate.
No, it is fulfilling, I'm very confident. It is a very fulfilling profession. But is it any easier? No.
Sometimes perception is ambiguous.
No, I think you're coming from a power, you're sitting on the other side. But maybe you guys should try and teach a class one day. You'll all take turns to teach one class to your own cohort and see how relenting that world is.
I tried, it's very tough. So I always thought I'd follow these footsteps and be a professor, do a PhD. I didn't end up that path. So I taught a course at Symbiosis, I taught a course at MDI Gurgaon. Very tough.
Yeah.
It means a lot of work, preparation, facing the class.
So one thing that we want to offer you, Ritu, is that you will do your PhD and you will do it with Ashish Bhattacharya at Shiv Nadar University. We are working on an executive PhD program.
Oh, that'd be very nice.
Which is going to be structured, and Professor Sundar is also leading that charge. One of the issues with PhD programs is that it's a stochastic process with a uncertain terminal timeline, whether it's going to take 5 years or 7 years or 9 years, Bhagwan jane. But we are trying to create a program which is much more, it's like a bento box. It's sort of much more self-contained and more structured and differently structured for corporate leaders like you yourself. So,
and I would like to have you as a student again.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. But I still remember how demanding a teacher you are.
He's a very
but that's what brings out the best in students.
No, we were often asked that question, those existentialist questions, as to what do universities or what do professors do so that they get paid. Okay, and the best answer that I've heard, it's not mine but one of my colleagues, is that they get paid to inflict pain. So yeah.
That's a nice answer.
No, but pain in the sense that it is people's jobs to sort of to critique, right? Only to look for that perfection.
Absolutely, no.
Yeah.
It's a blessing when your teachers are demanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's easiest for a teacher not to care, right?
Of course.
It just doesn't move the needle for them. So it's only with passion. It's only when they are passionate about your success that they put in that effort and demand that of you. So
yeah. Terrific.